disappointed when people quit, and now you understand it. Who would you say has come out of your kitchen that you're most proud of their career and proud of what they've done since they left you?
That's a tough question because they're all listening. I couldn't choose that. I just, you know what? I'm most proud of the people that started at the lowest position. Like Frank Langella and Babo started as a prepper, and he is the executive chef at Babo and my partner. Dan Drohan at Otto started the same way. Mark Ladner at Del Posto started the same way. Andy Nusser at Casamono and Terry started the same way. So it's not necessarily the ones that went on, like Mario Carbone, but like all the guys that work and all the people that are in my world, anywhere that they've come and gone to on either to work with me or work outside of me, it makes me so proud to see that they've come. And a lot of people have gone and left and decided to become a golf professional or whatever. I'm just happy that they found their own road and stayed in touch with me, and all of their success gives me almost as much joy as watching my kids come. Yes, in the blue and white.
I'm very fond of your friend Anthony Bourdain, you know, his program, and I can't get over the fact that he will eat and try anything all over the world, even though some of it is quite repulsive or he's still alive while he's eating it. And my question to you is, are you that adventurous? Would you try, taste, eat anything that's put before you just for the adventure experience of it?
The question is whether I would try just about anything that Anthony Bourdain would try. And I would say that for the TV shot, he'll go where he knows he might get sick. I won't. I don't need to eat raw, steaming mongoose sphincter to prove that the cheese is going to like me. That said, I appreciate what he does. He's a fantastic guy, and he's, as his morph away from eating, you know, the unsightly innards to kind of a news and film reference guy in CNN, puts him in a new league. I mean, he's definitely a very smart guy, and he cut his teeth on eating, you know, monkey ovaries or whatever, and it was a great place for him to start, but it wasn't where he got stuck. So that he has evolved makes him even more interesting. Yes?
Thank you both so much. It's been a great conversation. We actually have a question from one of our viewers on Facebook Live.
Fantastic.
So Lisa asked a question you may have been asked before in your career, and that would be, we want you to stay around for a long time, obviously, but if you were to choose your last meal, if you were to select either an array of courses, or what do you think your last meal ideally would be?
The question is, what would be my last meal? and I have two answers. The pithy one that you'll remember the most is that on my last meal, the company will be more important than the food. But that said, if I had to choose my last meal, I would be on a boat that forever sailed toward the sunset and went from town to town, eating the best seafood from each town and drinking the local wine from that town, prepared by the best chef in that town, until we ran out of wind. Yes, Ms. Black.
What's your most satisfying culinary experience? Like your soul, like something that you've eaten that's really satisfied your soul?
What is the thing that most satisfies my soul over the time that I've eaten? That is a complicated question. You know, the simple answer is that my favorite thing to eat is anything anyone else makes. But that said, over a long career of eating at fancy and not fancy restaurants, I've realized that I am much more impressed by what the earth gives us than what the chef does with it. So what gives me the most satisfaction anywhere I go is eating whatever's from there. Whether it's an apple just picked, or whether it's made into a pie in Washington State, or whether it's a filbert nut that was either just picked or made into some kind of a nut crunch, or whether it's a raw oyster wherever I happen to be, or some kind of shellfish that's just barely cooked. That said, if I had to choose one thing that makes me the really happiest, it's when I'm sitting on the Amalfi Coast and I'm eating linguine with whatever they just caught, with a little bit of parsley, garlic, and white wine. I'm drinking a bottle of Fiano, and the water is just moving, and my head is moving with it, and that gives me a joy that leads me to believe I must come from the sea on the Amalfi Coast. Yes, sir.
Regarding tipping, some of the restaurants now included as a service charge. What's your opinion on that?
That is a question that will define the future of sustainability of our business. As we move into a minimum wage that is $15 an hour for every single employee, figuring out exactly how not to challenge your customer in the fact that we're going to all have to raise our prices to deal with that 50% increase in all of our labor costs is we're at the waiting for someone else to blink moment right now. And just adding the tip charge or the service charge isn't necessarily the most profound answer, but I haven't figured it out. I can tell you right now that I cut a big piece of my finger off this week, so this finger has a no tipping policy. Yes, sir.
This is a question for both of you.
Okay.
I think as we're going away from fine dining, that's not fine dining anymore. I was wondering what you think is the paragon of that type of restaurant that's in the city right now.
Right.
Paragon of a restaurant that's not.
Yeah,
fine.
something like it's still innovative and still moving kind of cooking and techniques forward, but that's no longer white tablecloth anymore. Like Momofuku, perhaps. Something like that.
Well, don't lead the witness, come on.
I think the move away from tablecloths is an interesting and thoughtful way to deal with getting rid of one of the biggest costs. I mean, the idea of not having tablecloths and linen is cost-based. It also lets you know, but keep in mind, Nobu started that a long time ago, and I think a lot of the favorite Southeast Asian as well as sushi restaurants have always gone kind of not so fancy in the accoutrement and the tabletop, and yet a familiarity with product that wasn't necessarily familiarity with the consumer that would make you still feel like you're in a formal restaurant, as opposed to places where they kind of come out and just sing and slang the food. I would say that a good hybrid of that is something like what they do at Buvette, or what they do at Via Carota at Jody Williams. Both excellent restaurants, extremely delightful hospitality, extremely casual, and yet the cooking is still at a pretty high level, but it's not necessarily even cooked by cooks at Buvette. A lot of the breakfast foods are made by the gastronomes who run the bar, and they'll steam the eggs in a way that, because the product is so well sourced and the technique is so simple, you don't need it to come out of the kitchen. So that's kind of an interesting hybrid. I think a place like Roberta's is the other side of that. It's totally casual and totally remarkable, and based on that oven and their kind of thoughtful process that Carlo makes the food come out, it's kind of feels a little like it's a thoughtful, fancy restaurant, but it's also presented in a very boisterous pizzeria with people yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs all the time in Bushwick, which makes you feel cooler than you are, and that's a nice thing to be. I haven't yet been to Brooklyn Fair, mostly because I don't think you can take any pictures. But I think the food there is probably a good example of that, because you're still sitting in a bar, and you're still getting a very formal dining experience, which I think makes it a cool hybrid, right?
Well, what came to mind when you were asking a question when you were talking is, what are those restaurants that sort of do both things at once, that you feel like you could go to for a special occasion, but you also feel you could drop in? I mean, that to me is the current sweet spot, but an elusive one. And I'm gonna exempt from my answer any of Mario's restaurants, because if I name one of those, it'll seem like I'm just trying to be nice, so I couldn't name any of those. But I'm very.
He means Baba Lupa Esther Otto Casamon.
But I'm very impressed with Lilia in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
To me, that's a great example of a restaurant that hits that sweet spot, where you can order it away or have an evening there that makes it feel like an event, but you could also drop in. It has that sort of flexibility that Mario was saying he so misses when he goes to a place where they say these are the 8 courses you shall eat in this order, and it shall take you 3 hours, and you shall genuflect between courses. It doesn't have any of that.
What it does have is when you walk in, there is an amazing wood-fired grill that has one of those kind of parrilla kind of things. And just the smell reminds me, and the whole design vibe reminds me of a place called Zuni, which for me was a very significant restaurant in my coming of age in San Francisco in the gastronomy world. And that just always, whenever I see something that reminds me of that, it just gives me goosebumps and warmth all over, because that food was at once comforting and delightful, and at once cutting edge in California cuisine in the mid-'80s. That was something that, for me, always encapsulates what I consider the beginning of really America's greatness as food restaurant. Yes, ma'am, Orange.
Do you still source ingredients from the farmer's market? And if
Do we still source ingredients from the farmer's market at Union Square, and if so, how do we choose vendors? We have long relationships since my very first days with the Union Square farmer's market. In fact, that's where I found my wife, at Coach Farm goat cheese stand. I would say we definitely source them, because if there's any way that you can express something beyond your technique as a chef, it's to capture the way the food tastes because of its relationship to the soil, our aquifer, and our wind here. And when you travel enough and realize that you don't need to eat foie gras and caviar and smoked salmon in every location, what you're looking for is back to what I was talking about earlier, that ephemeral flavor of where you are. And although it costs more because we're paying full retail, because there's no reason for a farmer from a local market to give us a break on our product, because they're going to sell out no matter what. It's worth it to us because it captures that sense of place, that flavor of location. And we're supporting small farmers, not even medium-sized farmers, but small farmers, that it makes a difference for us. And doing the right thing and serving the right food, there's a confluence that makes a lot of sense. And it makes our food taste better. I mean, if you bring everything in from California, you could just as easily be eating in Iowa and California. And that's not a bad place to be. And I think what's clear in this book is there are a lot of statements about how to shop and how to do things. But at the end of the day, I'd rather you buy lettuce from California than go to a fast food restaurant. Like, you don't have to lose. There's no loss in making your own decisions. And you can't always be Alice Waters or Batali. You just have to do what you can, and you make the decisions that you can in making the food that you want to. But don't ever feel like, oh my God, I give up. Let's just go down to Popeyes. And not that Popeyes is bad, Popeyes is good. But and don't be afraid, or don't be embarrassed to go to Popeyes. But don't make all of your meals out, and don't let all of your food be made by machines. Make it by hand and do it when you can. And that's all you gotta do. There's no hell for you if you have to choose romaine from California. If you want a Caesar salad in January, that's your only choice. And that's still good.
Hey, Mario, the next question I'm told needs to be the last.
Okay, sir in the green.
My question really has to do with wine, which is how important to a restaurant is the wine list, and how much wine do you put in your food?
How important to a restaurant is a wine list, and how much wine do we put in our food? Well, we put wine in things that are braised. We put wine in our linguine with clams. We put more wine in our cooks than we put in our food. Wine is a crucial part of the experience. Wine could be by the glass. Wine could be by the bottle. Wine is a big piece of business for us. At some of our restaurants, wine is 40%. At some of our restaurants, wine is 20% of our annual sales. And it's an important piece of our business. Keep in mind, wine is less costly for us to run than food. Food labor is a lot more expensive than opening a bottle. That said, it all goes hand in hand, and the business of hospitality is serving as many things to as many people who are satisfied by them as you can without trying to turn anybody down as rarely as possible. So wine is a big thing for us, and we are big wine fans. I try to drink wine at least every week.
Mario, thank you for a conversation that ranged from Popeyes and Cheese Whiz to Plato's mongoose sphincter and monkey ovaries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming.
And just so you know, Frank Bruni is back Frank Bruni of the New York Times, who continues to define what excellence is in journalism and has the best eye on the entire election process going on. So just keep reading that stuff. He started as a food critic when I met him. He's a badass.
Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. We're just going to do a quick break to reset the stage for the signings. We could all remain